is Chloe Meinershagen, a 6th grader. Pioneer Heritage Middle School. A performer through and through, she likes to sing, dance, act, and of course, tell stories. This creative young lady hopes to one day perform on Broadway. Today, she'll be sharing a Korean folktale, The Fountain of Youth, with us. Please help me welcome Chloe Meinershagen to the stage.
Hi, I'm Chloe Meinershagen, and before I get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to my old elementary school, Bledsoe Elementary! Okay. Well, my story is called The Fountain of Youth. A long time ago, in a little village in Korea, there lived an old couple that had to work very hard because they were poor and they didn't have any children. But they were happy because they had each other. One cold and windy night, the couple had run out of firewood. So the woman asked her husband to get some more. So he took his coat off of the rack and put it on, took his sack off of the ground by the door, and flipped it on his back, kissed his wife, and walked out the door. Now usually it only takes about 30-40 minutes for him to get the wood and come back. But this time, the woman waited and waited and waited, and he still hadn't come back. And she checked out the window and saw that it had begun to get dark, and she was very worried when suddenly the door opened, and in walked not her husband, but a young man who was wearing the same coat and carrying the same sack as her husband. He took off his coat and put it on the rack, and took off the sack and put it by the door, as if this was his house. He began to take some wood from the sack and put it in the fireplace, as if this was his house. Well, the woman stared at him and said, "Who are you?" And the man replied, "Honey, it's me." And the woman didn't understand and said, "What happened to you?" And the man replied that after he had chopped down the wood, he saw that a bird had gotten stuck in the pile. So he wrestled it out and set it free. He began to take the wood and put it in his sack, when he noticed the bird hadn't flown away. It was circling around his head, as if trying to get his attention to follow it. So he did. He followed it as he walked and walked and walked, till he came upon a beautiful tall stone fountain in the middle of the forest, with water trickling down like crystals. Well, because the man had walked so far, he had quite a thirst, so he decided to take a sip. He reached in and took a sip. Ah, refreshing. Now, because that sip tasted so good, he decided to take another sip. So he reached in and stopped when he saw his reflection. It showed that he was young again. His wrinkles had disappeared and his gray hair had turned black. And he thought to himself, OMG. I can't even right now, but first, let me take a selfie. Smile. Hashtag me, hashtag love, hashtag I'm so fancy, hashtag party life, post. Just kidding, he wasn't that young. Now, when the wife heard the story, she decided she wanted to take a sip also. So, she followed him as they walked and walked and walked till they came to the fountain, where she reached in and took a sip. Ah, refreshing. And when she looked at her reflection, She saw that she was young again. Her wrinkles had disappeared, and her gray hair had turned black. The next day, they went into the town to find jobs. When in the town, a greedy old couple noticed their familiar voices in younger bodies and asked them what had happened. After hearing the incredible story, they decided they too wanted to take a sip from the Fountain of Youth. They learned the instructions and walked and walked and walked till they came to the fountain, where they reached in and took as many sips as they possibly could until their stomachs were full and they fell asleep. Now, the new young couple was waiting for the greedy couple to come back from the fountain. But after a while, the greedy couple hadn't come back. So the new young couple decided to investigate. They walked and walked and walked till they came to the fountain. While there, by the fountain, they saw 2 newborn babies. Now, these babies were in fact the greedy couple that had drank so much water they had become babies. But the new young couple didn't know that and thought that the babies were a gift from heaven. So they picked them up and took them home and raised them as their own children. And so, an old and lonely couple became a young and happy family, all because they weren't greedy. The end.
One more time for Chloe!